A billionaire CEO shocked his staff when he walked into the office with his sick mother. But what his secretary did next changed his life forever. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello, family. Welcome to Tales Haven. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. Jonathan Pierce had everything people admired: wealth, power, and respect. At 42, he was the billionaire CEO of Pierce Holdings, a company that controlled some of the most luxurious buildings in New York City. His name was on the covers of magazines, and business partners called him brilliant. But behind all the success was a man with a heavy heart. His mother, Evelyn Pierce, was once a graceful woman who had raised him with love and discipline. She used to host elegant dinners, read him bedtime stories, and remind him to always lead with kindness. Now, dementia had taken much of that away. Some mornings she woke up calling Jonathan by his father's name. Other times, she stared at him with confusion, asking, "Who are you again?" Those moments broke him more than any failed deal ever could. At home, Jonathan tried to balance being a CEO and a son. Nurses came in shifts, but none stayed long. Some were impatient, others careless. Evelyn would cry out, refusing to eat or take her medicine unless Jonathan himself was there. Every morning, he delayed his meetings, helping her with breakfast, brushing her thinning hair, and reminding her of the day of the week. That Monday morning, things reached a turning point. Jonathan had a board meeting with investors flying in from London, but Evelyn sat at the table, refusing to eat. Her eyes filled with fear. "Don't leave me, Jonathan," she whispered, clutching his wrist. "Please, don't go." He froze. The old Jonathan, the CEO, would have called another nurse and rushed to work. But the son in him could not walk away. He crouched beside her chair and said softly, "Then come with me, Mom. If you won't let me leave you here, then you'll stay by my side today." Minutes later, his black car pulled up at the grand entrance of Pierce Holdings. Security guards straightened their jackets when they saw him step out. But shock ran through the lobby as Jonathan carefully guided his frail mother, dressed in a simple floral dress, into the building. People whispered. Assistants and staff exchanged confused looks. The billionaire CEO had never brought family into his corporate world, let alone a sick mother. They rode the elevator together. Evelyn leaned against him, her hand gripping his arm for strength. Jonathan kept his head high, but inside his chest, he felt every stare and every whisper. Would his directors see him as weak? Would the staff lose respect? When the elevator doors opened, silence swept the floor. Employees stood frozen, staring at their powerful boss helping an elderly woman who looked out of place among the polished suits and laptops. But then, a soft voice broke the silence. "Good morning, Mrs. Pierce," said Rachel Adams, his secretary. She rose from her desk with a gentle smile, her tone warm and welcoming, as though Evelyn was the most important person in the room. "Would you like a cup of tea? We have chamomile or maybe green tea." Jonathan's heart tightened. In that single moment, while others stood speechless, Rachel showed kindness. She didn't see a burden. She saw a human being. Evelyn's eyes brightened, and she nodded. "Chamomile would be lovely, dear." Jonathan followed them into his office, silently moved. He realized something powerful that morning. He had brought his mother to work fearing judgment. Instead, what touched him most was a secretary's kindness that made his mother feel at home. And without knowing it, that decision to bring his mother to work had already started changing his life forever. Rachel returned with a steaming mug. "Chamomile, just like you asked, Mrs. Pierce." She set it on a small tray beside a chair near the floor-to-ceiling window. The morning sun warmed the spot, and the view of the city was calm, not busy. Rachel placed a soft gray blanket over the chair and added a small vase with one white flower from the lobby. It looked welcoming, not like an office corner at all. "Thank you, dear," Evelyn said, touching the blanket as if it were something precious. Rachel turned to Jonathan. "I'll set this up here each morning. She can sit where there's light, and I'll keep an eye on her while I work." Jonathan nodded. The knot in his chest loosened a little. You don't have to. I want to, Rachel said gently. Short sentences. Warm tone. Familiar things. Those help. She said it so simply that Jonathan did not feel judged. He felt helped. While Jonathan reviewed a contract, Rachel knelt by Evelyn's chair. Mrs. Pierce, may I write your name on this card? She held up a neat badge. It says, Evelyn Pierce, guest of Jonathan. Evelyn smiled. That's my name. Rachel clipped the badge to Evelyn's dress, then laid 3 items on the table. A large print magazine, a small puzzle with wooden shapes, and a pen with a cheerful blue ribbon. We can look at pictures, sort the shapes by color, or you can circle things you like. Evelyn picked the puzzle, tapping each piece like a tiny drum. Blue first, she said. Jonathan watched from his desk, surprised at how quietly the room settled. Phone calls continued. Emails were answered. Yet there was a gentleness he hadn't felt in months. At 10:05, Jonathan's intercom buzzed. Your investors are on the way up, Rachel said. A minute later, Evelyn stood suddenly, eyes searching. Where's Michael? He promised me a dance. Michael was Jonathan's late father. Jonathan stood, unsure what to say. Rachel moved beside Evelyn, her voice light. Is that the waltz you like? Let's save a dance for later. For now, will you help me with something important? Evelyn tilted her head. Important. We have to water the plant before the meeting. Only you can do it right. Rachel handed her a small watering can they kept for office plants. Together they poured a little water into the pot by the window. Evelyn smiled. Task complete. The boardroom doors opened. The investors filed in. They paused at the sight of the elderly woman by the window, but Rachel's calm presence smoothed the moment. Jonathan began his presentation with confidence he hadn't expected to have. Through the glass wall, he could see his mother sitting peacefully while Rachel answered calls and typed notes with quiet speed. During a short break, one of the senior directors whispered, Is this wise? Jonathan met his eyes. It's human, he said, then returned to the agenda. The meeting ran long. At one point, Evelyn drifted toward the hallway. A security guard stepped forward, unsure. Rachel reached her first. Mrs. Pierce, I found your scarf, she said, holding up a lavender handkerchief that smelled faintly of soap. Shall we look out the window together and find the tallest building? Evelyn's face brightened. The one with the pointy top. That's the one. Rachel guided her back, slow and sure. No fuss, no embarrassment. The guard stepped back, impressed. Lunch arrived. Rachel split a chicken salad into small, neat bites and placed the tray on Evelyn's table. Take your time, she said. Jonathan will join us soon. When Jonathan did come out, he saw half the salad eaten and the chamomile cup empty. He hadn't needed to beg or plead. He hadn't needed to be in 2 places at once. He felt his shoulders drop, as if he had been holding them up for months. How do you know what to do? He asked quietly. Rachel wiped the table, then looked up. My grandmother had dementia. I learned to keep things simple and kind. Correcting doesn't help as much as guiding. Routines matter. And sometimes, she added, smiling, a ribbon on a pen can make the day feel softer. Jonathan's voice went low. Thank you. You're welcome, she said, and returned to her desk. In the afternoon, Rachel reorganized Jonathan's calendar without disturbing his workload. She moved 2 calls to tomorrow, shifted a vendor visit to 4:30, and blocked a 15-minute walk time so he could take Evelyn around the indoor garden on the 8th floor. She sent each change with a clear note so no one felt pushed, just informed. Before the walk, Rachel sat with Evelyn, flipping through the magazine. Do you like dresses or shoes more? Dresses, Evelyn said at once, pointing to a soft blue one. I wore something like this when I met Michael. Jonathan, standing in the doorway, went still. Rachel glanced at him, then back to Evelyn. He must have been handsome. The handsomest, Evelyn said, patting Jonathan's sleeve without looking up. Just like my boy. Jonathan had to swallow before he could speak. Let's see that garden, Mom. They walked slowly among the tall plants and string lights. Rachel followed at a distance, giving them space yet ready if needed. A young intern passed and whispered to a friend, I didn't know he had a mom. The friend replied, "Everyone does." They smiled, not unkindly, and moved on. Near closing time, Rachel brought a small notebook with thick lines and a date at the top. "This can be our today book," she told Evelyn. "We'll write one good thing from each day. I can help you, and Jonathan can add a note too." Evelyn nodded. "Today, I had chamomile tea." Rachel wrote it down in large letters and drew a tiny teacup. Then she slid the notebook toward Jonathan with a pen. He added, "We worked together." It felt lighter. Evelyn traced the words with her finger, smiling as if she could feel the kindness inside the ink. When the lights dimmed and the office grew quiet, Evelyn touched Rachel's hand. "You're a good girl. You make rooms warm." "Thank you," Rachel said softly. "I'll see you tomorrow." In the elevator, Evelyn leaned against Jonathan, calm and content. "She has a kind face," she murmured. "Yes," Jonathan said, watching the doors close on the floor where his life had started to change. "She does." That night, Jonathan emailed facilities. "Order an armchair, a small table, a soft lamp for the window corner. Label, Mrs. Pierce's seat." He also added a second note to himself. "Ask Rachel what else Mom needs." He had brought his mother to the office for one difficult day. Now he was planning for many. What he didn't know was that tomorrow would ask even more of them and show him even more of her. The next morning, the new armchair, small table, and soft lamp were already in place by the window. Facilities had done it overnight. Rachel added small touches, a folded gray blanket, the same white flower in a tiny vase, and the Today book with the blue ribbon pen on top. Jonathan arrived with Evelyn on his arm. The elevator doors opened, and Evelyn stopped, surprised by the cozy corner. "For me?" she asked. "For you," Rachel said, smiling. "And your tea is almost ready." Evelyn touched the chair, then the lamp switch. Warm light filled the corner. Her shoulders relaxed. Jonathan met Rachel's eyes. "Thank you. This helps." "It's our routine now," she said. "Routines make days easier." By 9, the floor was busy. Jonathan had a strategy call at 10, a vendor review at noon, and a short interview with a business magazine at 2. He had considered canceling the interview, but Rachel sent a clear plan in his calendar. During interview, Rachel walks with Mrs. Pierce to the 8th floor garden. Return at 2:30. "Do you think that will work?" Jonathan asked. "It will," Rachel said. "I checked when the garden is quiet. I'll take her there." Evelyn circled blue puzzle pieces at the table. "The sky is blue," she said softly. "It is," Rachel answered, matching her tone. "And your dress is floral. Very pretty." At 10:07, a sudden loud beep cut through the office. The building alarm test had begun unannounced. The sharp sound flashed red lights along the ceiling. Evelyn flinched, eyes wide. "What is that?" she cried, hands lifting to her ears. "Michael? Jonathan?" Jonathan stood up fast, heart jumping. Before he could cross the room, Rachel was already there. She moved calmly, her voice low and steady. "Mrs. Pierce, I'm right here. Let's breathe together." She held out both hands. "In 2-3. Out 2-3. Evelyn's breath shook. The alarm beeped again. Rachel glanced at security, who stood frozen by the door. "Quiet room now," she said in a clear, firm voice. The small conference room. Lights dim. Security hurried to open it. Rachel guided Evelyn inside and closed the door to mute the sound. She switched off the bright overheads and turned on the soft lamp. "Jonathan," she said gently without looking away from Evelyn, "one voice at a time, please. Sit with us." He sat. Rachel pulled the blanket over Evelyn's knees, then took out her phone and played a soft instrumental waltz at low volume. "Do you hear it?" Rachel whispered. "It's the dance you like. You're safe." Evelyn's hands lowered. Her eyes followed Rachel's face. The next beep sounded far away now. Rachel began to hum with the music, slow and even. Evelyn matched her breath to the rhythm. After 2 minutes, the alarm test ended. The lights returned to normal. Rachel nodded to security. "Please send me the testing schedule going forward," she said. "We'll plan around it." Security swallowed. "Yes, Ms. Adams." I'm sorry. It's all right, she replied, still calm. Thank you. Jonathan watched, almost in disbelief. Rachel had not only soothed his mother, she had directed the room. Back at the window corner, Rachel took out a small box with dividers. This is a memory box, she told Evelyn. Inside were simple, gentle objects, a smooth pebble, a ribbon, a picture of a blue dress cut from a magazine, and, in a small frame, a black and white photo Jonathan had sent that morning. Evelyn and Michael at a fair, smiling beside a carousel. Evelyn's fingers trembled as she touched the photo. We danced there, she whispered. He wore a gray hat. Rachel nodded. You remember well. Jonathan felt his throat tighten. He had forgotten that hat. She hadn't. He stepped closer. Mom, I have a meeting now, but Rachel will be with you. Evelyn patted his sleeve. Don't be long. I won't, he said, and for the first time, he walked to the boardroom without fear. The strategy call ended on time because Rachel had sent clear pre-reads the night before. The vendor review finished early because she had prepared a single-page summary with costs in bold lines. At 2 o'clock, the magazine team arrived, a polite reporter and a photographer with a large camera. We'll keep it short, the reporter promised. A profile on leadership. Jonathan stood for the first photo when a senior director, Mark Lang, slipped in and muttered, "Cameras and caregivers on the same floor. Is this the image we want?" Before Jonathan could answer, Rachel stepped forward, voice level. Mrs. Pierce is enjoying the garden right now. The interview room has been cleared. If you need anything, I'll handle it. Mr. Lang flushed. I only meant. I know what you meant, Jonathan said, not unkindly but firm. Our image is competence with compassion. Let's proceed. The interview was focused and sharp. Jonathan spoke about buildings that welcomed people, not just profits. As he talked, he realized he meant it in a new way. At 2:35, Rachel returned with Evelyn. There was a sprig of mint in the Today book, taped neatly to the page. We found mint, Evelyn told Jonathan, smiling. It smelled like summer. It did, Rachel said. We rubbed the leaf and breathed in when the elevator chimed. It helped. The photographer looked at the scene. The billionaire CEO, his mother by a window, and the secretary who seemed to keep the whole floor steady. May I take one photo of the three of you? She asked softly. Jonathan looked at Rachel. She started to decline, then saw Evelyn sit a little taller, proud of her corner and her page. One, Rachel said. For the story of the day. They stood together. The camera clicked. No one posed. They simply looked like what they were, a son, a mother, and the person who made the day work. Near closing time, Rachel typed a short document and sent it to the floor. Evelyn Care Notes, Draft 1. Speak slowly and smile. Use names. Evelyn, Jonathan. Offer choices with pictures. If alarms or loud sounds occur, lamp on, small room, hum a slow tune. Count breaths. Call Rachel if unsure. She printed one copy and placed it in a clear folder by the window table. Then she set a small timer on the shelf, 30 minutes, for gentle stretch breaks. Jonathan stood beside her. You've done all this in one day. It's not hard, she said. It's just paying attention. It is hard, he answered quietly, and you make it look easy. For a moment, they were silent. The city glowed outside the glass. Evelyn traced the teacup drawing in the notebook and added, in careful letters Rachel had guided, We heard music. We stayed calm. Jonathan took the pen and wrote beneath it, We were led with kindness. He closed the book and looked at Rachel. Come to dinner tomorrow, he said, his voice steady. Mom would like it. And I would too. Rachel hesitated, not because she didn't want to, but because lines mattered. Then Evelyn looked up, hopeful. Please? Rachel nodded. Tomorrow, then. As the lights dimmed, Jonathan realized the day had tested them and shown him who Rachel truly was, not only a skilled assistant, but a gentle leader. And somewhere between alarms and waltzes, his guarded heart had taken a step he could not take back. The next evening came quietly. At 6 p.m., Rachel stepped out of a taxi in front of Jonathan's townhouse on the Upper East Side. The house was calm and elegant, brick, tall windows, and a soft light glowing from inside. She held a small gift bag with 3 things: a jar of lavender hand cream, a set of large print thank you cards, and a simple photo of the carousel she had printed during lunch. The door opened before she could knock. Jonathan stood there, not the CEO from the magazine cover, but a son trying to make a good night for his mother. "I'm glad you came," he said. "Thank you for inviting me," Rachel replied, steady but a little nervous. Inside, the hall smelled like roasted chicken and fresh herbs. A housekeeper named Marta smiled and took Rachel's coat. From the sitting room, Evelyn's voice floated out. "Is that my friend?" "It is," Jonathan said, and they stepped in together. Evelyn sat on a plush sofa with a knitted throw across her lap. The lamp beside her gave off warm light, just like the one by the office window. Rachel knelt, so they were eye level. "Good evening, Mrs. Pierce. I brought something for you." She placed the small photo of the carousel in Evelyn's hands. Evelyn's face softened. "The fair," she whispered. "He wore a gray hat." Rachel smiled. "We remembered that." Jonathan swallowed. The detail landed again, clear, bright, personal. "May I put this where you can see it?" Rachel asked. "Right there," Evelyn said, pointing to the mantel. "So the room can remember with me." They ate at a round table near the kitchen: roast chicken, baby potatoes, green beans with a squeeze of lemon. The table was set for 3. It did not feel like a business dinner. It felt like a family meal where conversation could breathe. Rachel cut Evelyn's chicken into small, neat pieces and set water with a slice of cucumber by her plate. "Small bites," she said, "and we'll rest between them." Evelyn nodded, willing. Between bites, she told a half-story about a dress she wore the year Jonathan turned 10. She forgot the color, then laughed at herself. "It was blue," Jonathan said gently. "We spilled lemonade on it in the backyard." Evelyn brightened. "Yes. You cried." "I told you, we wash what we can wash. We keep what we can keep." Rachel met Jonathan's eyes. The sentence stayed in the air like a soft rule for the house. After dinner, Rachel offered her second gift. "A new notebook," she said, placing it on the coffee table. The cover read Evening Book in gold letters. "One good thing from every night. May I write the first line with you, Mrs. Pierce?" Evelyn tapped the page with a careful finger. "We had chicken and laughter." Rachel wrote it in large letters, then drew a tiny chicken and a tiny smile. She passed the pen to Jonathan. He added. The house felt warm again. Evelyn traced the words. "Warm," she said softly, as if tasting the sound. A small moment tried to break the peace. When Marta brought tea, the tray rattled and a cup tipped. Hot liquid slid toward the edge. Evelyn startled, eyes wide. Before panic could climb, Rachel moved her hand in a slow, visible circle. "We're safe. Watch the circle. Breathe with me." She dabbed the spill with a towel, then placed a saucer in Evelyn's hands. "Touch the rim. Cool ceramic. Tea will wait." Evelyn breathed out, shoulders loosening. Jonathan watched the fear leave his mother's face as quickly as it had come. He felt gratitude rise, so sharp it almost hurt. When the dishes were cleared, Jonathan played an old music box from a shelf. The lid opened, and a quiet waltz filled the room. Evelyn lifted her head. "That one," she whispered. "We danced to that one." "May I?" Jonathan asked, holding out his hand. Evelyn stood with his help. They moved slowly in a small circle on the rug, mother and son, careful and close. Rachel stepped back to give them space, her hands folded, her smile steady. When the song ended, Evelyn kissed Jonathan's cheek and sat, peaceful and proud. "Rachel," she said, reaching out, "your turn to dance." "Not with me, my legs are tired." "With him." Rachel laughed softly. "I don't think." "Just a little," Evelyn insisted, mischief bright in her eyes. Jonathan looked at Rachel, offering a quiet choice, not pressure. She placed her hand in his. They took only a few steps, simple, slow, almost nothing at all. But in that almost dance, the room seemed to decide something it had been thinking all evening. They let go at the same time. Later, Rachel walked with Evelyn to her bedroom so Jonathan could speak with Marta about medications. The room was gentle, cream curtains, soft lamp, 3 framed photos on the dresser. Rachel set the lavender hand cream by the bed. Hands, she said, sitting. Just a little. She rubbed the cream into Evelyn's palms in slow circles. Lavender is for sleep. Evelyn closed her eyes. You make rooms warm, she murmured. The same words she had said at the office, now deeper. Rachel helped her change into a nightgown, then labeled the top drawer with a small card. Pajamas. She placed the carousel photo on the dresser where it could be seen from the bed. If you wake in the night, Rachel said, look at the picture and think of the waltz. Evelyn smiled. I will. When they returned to the sitting room, Jonathan was waiting with 2 mugs of chamomile. He noticed the cream on Rachel's hands and the calm in his mother's face. Thank you, he said simply. They stepped onto the small terrace for a breath of night air. The city hummed at a soft distance. For a moment, they were quiet. I want to be clear, Rachel said first. Her voice was warm but careful. I'm your secretary. I respect lines. If this, she searched for the right word, feels like more, it must also feel honest and steady. For her sake. For yours. For mine. Jonathan nodded. I understand. I don't want confusion. I want the truth. And the truth tonight? She asked. He looked through the glass at his mother, drifting towards sleep in the chair. The truth is that when you walk into a room, I can breathe. And she can, too. Rachel's eyes softened. Then the truth is kind. They stood there, not touching the way 2 people sometimes don't when the moment matters. Before Rachel left, Evelyn called softly from the sofa, half awake. Jonathan. He knelt beside her. I'm here, Mom. She opened her hand. Inside was a small, worn ring, thin gold, simple. Your father gave me this on a quiet night, she whispered. He said, we choose our life in small ways. If you ever need the right kind of courage, take it. Jonathan held the ring, stunned. Are you sure? Evelyn smiled. We wash what we can wash. We keep what we can keep. Rachel looked away to give them privacy, but the words went into her like light. Jonathan rose and walked Rachel to the door. Thank you for tonight, he said. It was good, she answered. Write 1 line in the evening book after I go. He did. After the door closed and the house settled, Jonathan opened the notebook and wrote. She brought peace. We all felt it. Then he went to his father's old study, opened the top drawer, and set the thin ring beside a small velvet box he had never used. He touched both once. He wasn't a man who rushed. But as he turned off the lamp, he knew something simple and strong. The next step was not a question anymore. It was only a matter of when. The following week, the office felt different. The staff noticed it. The once intimidating CEO now walked through the halls with his mother on one side and his secretary on the other. His suits were still sharp, his voice still firm, but there was something new in his eyes, softness. Jonathan had not spoken his feelings out loud yet, but the weight of them grew heavier each day. He found himself looking for Rachel not only when he needed schedules arranged, but when silence pressed on him, when his mother grew restless, or when a problem seemed too tangled to solve. And Rachel was always there, steady, patient, kind. One afternoon, Evelyn had a moment of sharp confusion. She mistook a visiting partner for Jonathan's father and insisted that Michael had returned. The room grew tense, the visitor uncomfortable. But Rachel knelt beside Evelyn, holding her hand. Mrs. Pierce, she said gently, sometimes love feels so close, it seems like they've come back. Let's sit and tell me your favorite memory of him instead. Evelyn's face softened. She began to speak about a snowy night and a scarf shared between them. The visitor listened quietly, touched by the tenderness. Later, he whispered to Jonathan, you're lucky. Not just with your mother, but with the woman who understands her. Jonathan said nothing, but his heart knew the truth. That Friday, Jonathan surprised everyone by canceling his evening meeting. Family comes first, he said simply, and drove Rachel and Evelyn to the pier. They ate fried fish wrapped in paper, listened to street musicians, and walked slowly under the sunset sky. At one point, Evelyn sat on a bench to rest. She looked at Jonathan, then at Rachel, and gave a smile that seemed almost knowing. "You remind me of me," she told Rachel softly. "Strong where it counts. Gentle where it heals. Don't let him work too much." Rachel laughed nervously. Jonathan's chest tightened. Later that night, after they brought Evelyn home and she had gone to bed, Jonathan asked Rachel to stay a moment. They sat in the quiet living room where the carousel photo glowed under the lamp. Jonathan opened a drawer and took out the thin gold ring his mother had given him. His hand trembled as he held it. "My father gave this to my mother," he said. "She passed it on to me last week. She told me I'd know when it was time to use it." Rachel's eyes widened, but she didn't speak. Jonathan reached for her hand. "Rachel, I was a man who thought money could fix everything. But you showed me what I was missing: kindness, patience, love. You didn't just care for my mother. You cared for me. And I don't want to face another day without you beside me." He dropped to one knee, right there in the living room, holding up the ring. "Will you marry me?" Tears filled Rachel's eyes. She had walked into his office as an employee, never imagining this path. But she had seen the truth of him, not just the CEO, but the son, the man who cared too much and loved too deeply. "Yes, Jonathan," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Yes, I will." The wedding was small but beautiful. Evelyn sat in the front row, her eyes brighter than anyone had seen in years. She clapped when Jonathan kissed his bride, whispering, "Michael would be proud." And when the night ended, Rachel helped Evelyn write the first line in a new notebook: "We gained a daughter today." The house is full. A year later, laughter filled the Pierce home. Toys scattered across the floor, and the smell of fresh cookies floated through the kitchen. Evelyn, though her memory flickered, smiled as she watched her son carry a baby girl in his arms. Rachel stood beside him, rocking a second child, a boy with Jonathan's eyes. Jonathan wrapped his arm around his wife, kissed her temple, and whispered, "Storms don't last." "No," Rachel said, looking at their children and the woman who had raised her husband. "But love does." The house that once felt heavy with silence now rang with life. And it had all begun the day a billionaire CEO brought his sick mother to work, never knowing that kindness would lead him to forever. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find this story worth watching. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories, like, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.